You know, if you're going to run the live stream and you're going to speak at the same time, you might want to position someone up there to actually start the live stream before you actually come on. Just pro tip. Okay. Hello, everybody. I said diversity. We're talking about Ephesians 4, 7 through 16. That is an old wooden ship from the Civil War era. It's actually USS Diversity, but that's actually a movie quote for Tyler's sake. Tyler loves Anchorman, and that comes from Anchorman. So anyway, if you didn't know the movie, don't worry about it. That's the USS Diversity. So you can go with that one or the movie quote, whichever one you want. But we're going to talk about diversity a little bit. I want to start with, how does the world define or see diversity? Okay? Is it different than kind of our view of diversity? Yes. The world will see diversity through the lens of race, does it not? Racial differences. Behavior differences, right? Cultural differences. All those things is this definition of diversity in the world. The interesting thing about the way they see diversity, though, is this. They want diversity as long as it doesn't do anything to make them uncomfortable. Does that make sense? As long as that diversity, yeah, thanks, Chris, good job. That actually was not appropriate at that point, but that's okay. They want diversity as long as everybody involved kind of sees it down the same line and doesn't challenge any of their biases, presuppositions, lifestyles, behaviors. So in the world of diversity, Christian thought, is it a good thing to the world of diversity or a bad thing? Bad. Because it challenges the comfortability of the things that they live in. Make sense? We're challenging those biases and suppositions. They're telling a lie. The lie is diversity of all this other stuff, but it's not diversity of opinion. Only one opinion really matters. Here's another interesting quote, and this goes back. Hi, Pete. How are you? Pete and Lydia are here. There's two of my. I love them. Sorry. I actually have to say something right now. I'm going to stop and tangent this. For you guys at Robert Road, Pete actually was there the first time I ever spoke there. He actually came over. Yeah, it was cool. And there's a whole cool other story of the first time he saw me speak. He just showed up at my dad's church. And long story. Anyway, Pete's become a very good friend of mine. We hike. We do a lot of things together. I love Pete and Lydia, so hi, guys. Anyway, that's my tangent. Quote that he told me last night that I love is this. Lies are loud. They're shouted to the rooftops. They're presented big, bold. Right? Why? They have to overpower something. They've got to be greater than. Many times, if we're arguing, when do we get the loudest? When we're wrong. This is a failure of mine. I am famous for, especially when I was and one of my finance managers at York used to call me out. He'd go, Josh, there are times where you're so convincing in what you say that you just keep going with it, but you're just wrong. Because I say it loud, bold, and in charge. But it was wrong. Okay? Lies are loud. They're promoted. They're put all over the place. But most often, the truth is quiet. Now, here's some reality of truth. If there's truth, why is the truth a lot of times quiet? Huh? Doesn't need to argue. That's good. Where does truth typically begin? Where? Facts. But real truth begins, Proverbs 9:10. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Humility is the beginning of truth. So if you're coming to truth in a humble way, is truth loud, in your face, in charge? Or is truth much more quiet, subdued, confident? Right? So that quote really does, and these are generalities we're talking about, but the world definitely doesn't want things to make them uncomfortable. Unfortunately, that bleeds over to us because we tend to focus on the gifts given to us rather than the giver. Okay? So now we're focused on the gifts, and inside of those gifts that each of us have, we don't like things that make us uncomfortable. And I'm going to talk about this a little later on, but just the preview is this. If there's a conflict of gifts in a organization, church, congregation, group of people, what happens? They what? They split and then become another group or another denomination. Right? Denominations have been created because we have lacked understanding of diversity in our gifts and seen them as, hey, that makes me uncomfortable. We're going to go with those that make us feel uncomfortable. And we're going to see the consequences of that in a little bit. So let's get into it. We are in Ephesians. So Ephesians is a big, it honestly is a big letter to us, to the church. Pretty much every time I've heard of a church going through Ephesians, I've heard of incredible things happening in that church. Just so happens as we go through Ephesians, incredible things happen in our church. Coincidence? Probably not. So let's get into Ephesians real quick, and we're going to get into this idea of diversity and gifts. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body, one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. Unity. But Paul loves his transitions. However, he has given each of us a special gift through the generosity of Christ. Make every effort. That is why the scriptures say when he ascended to the heights, he led a crowd of captives and gave gifts to his people. Notice that it says he ascended. This clearly means that Christ also descended to our lowly world. And the same one who descended is the one who ascended higher than all the heavens so that he might do what? Fill the entire universe with himself. What do we want out of that? What did Christ do? He gave us what? Gifts. He gave gifts. And how much of those gifts did he give? To fill the entire universe. So are these gifts limited or are these gifts vast? These are vast gifts, large gifts, long, huge lists of gifts that he's given to the entire universe since he's been doing this. With those gifts, Romans kind of leads us down a path of saying, what do we do with these gifts? Because of the privilege and authority God had given me, I give you each this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Begins with humility. Be honest in your evaluation of yourself, measuring yourselves by faith that God has given us. Just as our bodies have many parts, each part has a special function. So it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. Many parts, one body. Do all of those parts do the same thing together? No. If you collected 15 hands, you've got 12 hands too many. In his grace, God has given us different gifts doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you're a teacher, teach well. God has given different gifts. If your gift is encouraging others, be encouraging. If it's giving, give generously. If it's giving you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Pretty good list. Varying kind of with some things that we see. We tend to rank the gifts. We want to promote certain gifts above other gifts, but this has a nice, all the way from serving and giving to prophesying, speaking, teaching, right? All of those gifts. Any one gift better than another? No. At this point, I want to give you a quick list, I say quick, of gifts given by Christ, okay? So we're going to go down this list of gifts given by Christ that we've seen. Apostles. Christ gave some people to be apostles, did he not? Particularly the first 12. And you can call Paul that. Prophecy, prophesying. What does prophesying do? What's the idea of prophecy, prophesying, saying? You what? Reveals the truth. The idea of prophecy is just revealing the truth. I mean, we've turned it into something saying that you're saying something for the future, not all the time. Prophecy is just simply revealing the truth to a time. What was Isaiah? What was Jeremiah? What was Elijah? And they did speak of the future, but most of their prophesying was saying what to Israel? Turn, repent, do this now. You've had problems in the past. You need to do something now in the future. That was their prophesying. Now, it did include some things that happen in the future. But prophecy does not just include what is in the future. It has a meaning or a bearing on what's happening now. Evangelists. What does it mean to evangelize? Share. Be an example. Right? Have people see the love of God in you. Sometimes done through speaking, sometimes done through action, sometimes done through just living your life. Pastors, teachers. These are the gifts we typically kind of see and we go, okay, these are these big gifts that people are doing. But we start getting a little more narrow. Words of wisdom. Has there been time that you've been given kind of a word to give to somebody? Or they've been given a word for you, better yet, and you've heard a word of wisdom that God gave somebody out of nowhere. Words of knowledge, faith, miraculous works, miracles, distinguishing between spirits. That's an underrated gift, I really believe. It's the gift of discernment. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. The gift of discernment, right? Being able to sit, because a lot of times, somebody with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, not looking in a mirror right now, but let's say somebody with enthusiasm and excitement probably needs somebody with a little more sit down and think about this. I'm a bull in a china shop. I'm going straight for it. We're going, right? But I need that person that sits down and says, hey, let's think about this, see the consequences of this, the discerning spirit that goes on. Those are necessary balances. What happens if you have too much of an enthusiasm spirit? Gets crazy. Things you make poor decisions. You go there. What happens if you have too much of a discerning spirit at times? You what? It sits back. It does nothing. It's almost paralyzed. It's what do you say, paralysis by analysis, right? You don't do anything. You need both of these sides to be able to do something. Speaking in tongues, interpretation of tongues, serving, encouraging, exhortation. A lot of times those people with excitement are, generally speaking, encouragers, right? They have an encouraging spirit about them. Giving, leading, showing mercy, helping, guidance, administration, speaking, gifts of healing. But I say, oh, wait, there are more that go along with this. How about these? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, hopefulness. Are there people that you have that just have a capacity to love amongst that are greater than anybody you've ever seen? There are people with that capacity. Are there people that are just joyful for no particular reason at all? They just exhibit this spirit of joy. Are there people who just have a spirit of peace in them? It's almost supernatural at that point. Are there people who just exhibit self-control? They have something that I don't have. Okay? But don't forget about other gifts. Being poor in spirit, one part of humility. Being one who can understand and know the position that we are before God, mourning our own condition, knowing what our condition is. Meekness, the other part of humility. Hunger for God's goodness, merciful, pure in heart, peacemakers, those who endure. Am I done with the list? No. Actually, it was interesting because I came up, I was like, I didn't even put prayer on here. Are there prayer warriors out there? Are there people who are just gifted at the art of prayer? That's the person I need because I'm not. Again, I'm high energy, encouraging. I go. But what do I fail to do? Stop. Sit back. Go before my God and experience what I need to be doing, right? Don't do that. That's not part of my gift. With those gifts, God said, I'm doing this for the betterment of the whole. But there is a second side to this, which is there is a Satan, right? There is something trying to get in the way of all of this. Can Satan steal you away from God? No. But what is Satan trying to do? Keep you ineffective so others don't come to God. Right? And so in all of this variety of gifts that we have, it is possible, however unlikely, that they might find a weakness and exploit it. That's my Star Wars quote for the day. But the weakness of these gifts is this. We tend, as people, to congregate with others with our same gift because it's comfortable. These gifts can be very conflict-oriented. They can be grating. I can irritate people. No. My wife back there is just shaking her head. There are opposite ends of these gifts that when pitted against each other put us in conflict. They make us uncomfortable. And in our nature, we run from that. And we tend to run to other people who have the same gifts. So what happens is we have a conflict, we separate, we go our way, we have a group, we go this way, they have another group, and now we have, the second church of whatever denomination that you have. And then the third church of denomination of whatever we had. Correct? How many denominations are in the world? Huh? I've heard 30,000 in the world. I've heard as many as 45,000 denominations in the world. It's a tough one to nail down because here's another thing that happens. We have about 300 denominations, Christian denominations in the United States, official denominations, right? But what happens if the Ridge, which is technically speaking a Southern Baptist church, says, you know what, we're no longer going to be Southern Baptist, but we have a church. So we go become what? Independent. Well, is that another denomination? Well, sort of. So all of these different people, when things start to be conflict-oriented, when things start to get a little hairy, instead of seeing those differences as something that makes us better, they decide it's time to split. Let's go about our ways. Now, what happens then to the ministry when we split? We've lost something of the power of those gifts. Because often we focus on the gift rather than the giver of the gift. The rest of Ephesians goes like this. Now, these are the gifts Christ gave the church, the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, and the pastors and the teachers. And again, among many others. Their responsibility is to equip God's people to do his work and build up the church, the body of Christ. This will continue until we all come to such a unity in our faith. Now stop. Diversity of gifts coming into unity. That's a little problematic for us because we tend to not do that. We love to separate ourselves. We love to congregate with those that we want. But he's saying here, you take all these gifts, you put them all together, what happens if you start making each other feel a little bit uncomfortable? You what? You grow. You don't grow. When do we grow the best? When everything's nice, when it's awesome for us. We live in the church of comfortable. That's the United States in general. Western culture. We live for comfortability. Heaven forbid I go 5 minutes without being distracted by something on my phone. Right? And knowledge of God's Son that we will do what? Be made mature. You want to be mature, get with other people who are going to challenge you. Get with people that make you a little bit uncomfortable. Continue on, because those things that make you uncomfortable and challenging will cause this little word called perseverance. And if we go to James, perseverance leads to faith, and faith leads to hope. This whole idea is be uncomfortable because you're going to grow when you're most uncomfortable. And the things that will make you most uncomfortable are those people who probably are the most irritating to you. Then you will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed around and blown away by every wind of new teaching. Here's the deal. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth. Those loud lies, those loud people, basically knowing, hey, if I work a bunch of emotional people up into a frenzy, I'm going to be able to elicit this emotional response to get something I want. And Satan says, I can take those people out of the equation. Or I can say this is so solemn, this is so reverent that we're just going to sit and we're not going to have any emotion and we're going to put our arms like this. And all that's going to happen is those people are going to separate themselves from the joy that God's truth, that God's Spirit, that the gifts actually present. You see how this is working? They work against each other. They fight against each other often. And so often, the lies that are the loudest to you are the ones that play right into the things that you probably are the most gifted with. In those gifts, is there any one gift that you just do and you don't have anything else that's a part of you? No. I'm gifted. I have a gift of speaking. I have a gift of encouraging. I have a gift of this. Whatever you want to call this, it is, right? But this gift could be used for ulterior purposes. I could go into my finance office and try to use these gifts to convince them of something that's wrong. Done it before. God needs you to see the other gifts to start balancing those things out. Because as I'm gifted in those, do I need times of quiet? I need times of quiet. Do I need times of prayer? Am I going to be great at prayer? Probably not. But God challenges me to actually try. In that list, let me see here. The gifts of the Spirit typically are those that guide us or that we need to at least pay some attention to if we're struggling with, right? Do all of us need to have some form of love in us? Yes. Even though some are going to be greater at love. Joy, peace, patience. These are gifts that we need to hold on to, even though we may be very opposite of what those things are. With that, speaking the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. He makes the whole body fit together perfectly. As each part does its own special work, it helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy, growing, and full of what? Love. Take these gifts and move forward. With the way they go, our knowledge is partial and incomplete, right? We don't have every gift. Every gift is not, Chris, you don't have every gift known to mankind, do you? Nope. Every gift of prophecy reveals only part of the whole picture. But when the time of perfection comes, when is the time of perfection? You end what? When Christ comes back, these partial things will become useless. Let's go back to this list. When Christ comes back, do we need apostles? No. We have Jesus. Do we need evangelists? No. Do we need pastors, teachers? Encouraging even at that time. Giving. Those things, this world, it's perfection. We don't need those gifts anymore. But 3 things will last forever. 3. So if we're going to look at these gifts and we're going to say, I'm this, that, or the other, what 3 things might we want to make sure that we hold on to in this time? Faith, hope, and love. Hebrews 11:6, and it is impossible to please God without faith. I found that's an actually interesting comment because I'm going, those that say, if you're asked the question, say you're asked the question, God, you come down, you die, and you say, hey, why should I be in heaven? If your answer is, well, I went to church, I believed right, I did good things, when you go to worship, what are you worshiping at that point? You're worshiping yourself. You did all those things. But if you go before God and you say, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Now what are you praising? Now what are you worshiping? You see the difference? Faith in yourself leads to destruction. Faith in God leads to salvation. And love. 3 things will last: faith, hope in Jesus, and love. And what does it say about love at this point? The greatest of these is love. Our challenge in our gifts, our challenge in the diversity of what we do, is that we find ways to resolve those conflicts together, to use all of these gifts together. Because what happens out of it? The ministry expands. God's work is even greater. People see a greater work in you than ever. It's not because you always do the same things, but because you value other things greater than yourself. You love. Worship team can come up. In the end, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. That's the diversity. The great diversity of gifts that he has. What are we to do? We are to use them well to do what? Serve one another. That's the point of our gifts. This room has, if there's 120 people in here, there's 120 different gifted people here. Is any one gift greater than another? Actually, you know what? I'm going to say there is greater gifts. What did the disciples a couple times stand around and argue? Who's the greatest? Who's the greatest? Who's the greatest? And what did Jesus say about that? You want to be the greatest, be the least. You want to be the greatest, serve. Because ultimately, who is the greatest that ever was? Jesus. And what did he do as the ultimate gift? He served to the point of death and helps others. So if we want to rank them, let's start with the bottom. Let's start with the places the world doesn't see. With that time, we're going to come to a time of communion. Get these out here. This is where we remember what Christ did. This is where we take into account the ultimate gift that he gave. And then distributed that amongst the rest of us. And he asks us to have faith, to have hope, and to have love for each other. This is remembrance of that hope. I don't know if I want to sing, but my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and his righteousness. On Christ's solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. It will all fail you. The lies, it's going to hit you in your pride. It's going to make you want to run away. This life is going to make, the true life of Jesus is going to make you uncomfortable. We are asked to be uncomfortable together. And then God does some great things with it. As we take, if you haven't been here before, we take communion, I pray And then you get up, you get the bread and the cup, and you go back to your seat and you take it as you will. So I just wanted to let you know that. Let me pray real quick for communion and we'll get moving. God, you have given us the greatest gift and distributed amongst us all in many, many, many different ways. I ask in that, challenge us to see each other through you in your light. And when we make each other a little bit uncomfortable, for us to give grace, for us to be merciful, for us to see others as better than ourselves. Because that's the beginning of wisdom. That's the beginning of understanding truth. The lies are going to be very loud to us, and many times the truth is going to be quiet. This is a time we're going to remember your Son and remember that his ultimate humility was to be God incarnate and to become a human and to die a lowly death and be persecuted for us. We love you, praise you, and thank you, and just keep this spirit in us in your Son's name.